is. Um, and as you can see, if you heard, it says recording is in progress. So we will be recording this meeting. Um, take you back to probably 2 Thursdays ago, we talked about the countywide strategic plan, and one of the community outcome areas is safety and security. So just kind of want to link tonight's presentation to that. And, one of our outcomes of Fairfax County is just ensuring that there's a comprehensive, equitable, and inclusive approach to public safety and justice. So we got some great presentations tonight. With that, I'm going to kick it off because we have a packed agenda, and I am going to turn it over to Ms. Katina Matthews.
Good evening, everyone. So glad that you are back tonight to our dedicated few. We started off with a lot more attendees, but for one reason or another, we have you have been committed and able to share with us each week and participate in the neighborhood college session. So we do appreciate your time and commitment for sharing with your Thursday with us as well. Tonight, like Letitia said, we have a jam-packed agenda. We do anticipate that we will finish on time. However, because it is jam-packed, if you have to immediately get off at 8:30 if we're not finished, please do so. But we anticipate trying to stay close to 8:30 as possible. But we know we didn't want to just cut the presenters off too short. And again, if you have any questions that we may not be able to answer tonight, or if you want to follow up with any of the presenters, I will be sending out slides as well as giving you the opportunity to send me information and I can connect you to the appropriate person. So tonight's public safety and emergency services. Our presentations tonight will come from the Mount Vernon District Police Station. Officer Marvin Goodley will be presenting. He is our crime prevention specialist at the Mount Vernon District Station. And then we also have Officer Cindy Acegueda, who is the Community Outreach Officer for the Franconia District Police Station. The reason why we invited both from Mount Vernon and Franconia is because of the Mount Vernon District covers all the way from the Mount Vernon area up to Lorton. And we do know that we do have some Lorton residents in our neighborhood college. So we wanted to get some insight and some perspectives from both police stations. Then we also have our Cert outreach coordinator. Cert is the Community Emergency Response Team. Mr. Jim Mcfeeders will be on to present. And then we have the Department of Code Compliance. So we have Rachel Perrault, she'll be on to present this evening. And then last but not least, we have our Department of Emergency Management and Security, otherwise known as DEMS, and Courtney Arroyo, who's the Community Engagement Manager, will be presenting in that order. So without further ado, I'm going to start off with Marvin. You can go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to say good evening to everybody. I am Officer Goodley. I'm the crime prevention officer here at the Mount Vernon Station. I've been at Mount Vernon, I guess my whole career which would be 23 years. Prior to that, prior to being a crime prevention officer, I was a school resource officer at Sandburg and West Potomac, along with being a detective in our criminal investigation section here at the Mount Vernon Station. You can go to the next slide, please. So the Mount Vernon District Station makes up 26 square miles. We have 10 patrol areas. The area to the north, just above 200, that's actually the Beltway. So we cover from the Beltway down to Belleville, which is just below 240 and 241. The area to the right of 211 and 230, that's actually the Potomac River. And right there to the left of 201 and 220 is actually Telegraph Road. So from the Beltway to Belleville, from the Potomac to Telegraph Road, 26 square miles. We have some standout things in the Mount Vernon district, which would be George Washington Estate, Huntley Meadows Park, and of course, Fort Belvoir Army Base. Now, the big thing with Fort Belvoir Army Base is with the improvement of things going on at the Army Base, it has increased traffic flow and it increased the population in Mount Vernon during the working hours. So that is a big thing that actually has changed some things in Mount Vernon and has changed the traffic flow up and down Richmond Highway. Next slide, please. So, back up one. Nope, going too far. Okay, yep, perfect. So here's the breakdown of the station. Pretty much, we're authorized to have 126 personnel. We're actually down. Actually, I checked today. We're actually down to 117. So the breakdown is usually the squads are broken down evenly, but unfortunately, through the staffing issues, we've had to switch some things around, putting most of our personnel on day work and midnights with a small evening shift to help bridge the gap. We had to reduce some of our staffing in the neighborhood patrol area. And with our domestic violence unit, the domestic violence unit was actually switched up to headquarters. They still working in Mount Vernon. They've just been switched up to headquarters. But we still have 5 SROs. Myself and Katie Watts still does the crime prevention, and we have 1 victim service person. So this is what the staffing in the station looks like as of now. It could change anytime soon. Next slide, please. So in 2020, most of the calls in Mount Vernon was for service. 59% of our calls were for service. Yeah, 18% traffic, 23% criminal stuff, but a lot was for service. And those service calls would be, someone in mental health service, someone needing medical service, someone lost, someone needed any activity other than criminal activity. So we saw that number, 59%, a lot of service calls. You'll see the results of that later. Next slide, please. So in 2021, even during COVID and now during mid-COVID, 64% of our calls were service. So even during COVID, we still had a large amount of service calls, noise complaints, people needing mental health issues, traffic accidents, stuff that didn't, traffic accidents was 14% and criminal was 22%. In area 201, which is just right next to the Beltway, that'll be onto the west side, had the most calls for service. That's because there's more apartment complexes over there, which means that you have a greater density of people there. So large number of service calls. So that's what we focus on a lot in Mount Vernon, a lot of service calls. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick look at what the calls we go to. And what I want to emphasize was, again, those service calls, if you look at the bottom for 2020, October 1, 2021 to present, pretty much we had 27, almost 2,700 calls, varying criminal degrees. So in October from 2022, we had almost 2,500 criminal calls. So even with that, if you look to the chart to the right, even with those combined with some other criminal stuff, it still didn't outnumber the number of service calls. So in 2021, 15,000 service calls. In 2020, 14,000 service calls. So we're doing a lot of things to help people that does not involve criminal activity. So you figure you wouldn't realize that with the police department, but we do stretch out into other areas. I just want to give you a snapshot of exactly, okay, when people think, okay, the police do a lot of criminal stuff. No, we actually do a lot of service stuff, especially here in Mount Vernon because of the population. Next slide, please. The next slide. So in Mount Vernon, we do have our CAC, which is composed of citizens in the community that work with the police department to bring about different things and talk about different issues that's going on in the community. Our CAC is very active. We meet once a month on the second Tuesday. We were doing virtually, but we're trying to actually get it back in person now. So even through the pandemic, we still were meeting virtually to talk about issues and bring about different things and talk about different things to enhance our relationships in the community. Next slide, please. So once again, we also offer Neighborhood Watch. Pretty much that's where we go out and tell the community how they can protect themselves from the different things that's going on in the community. Once again, we did those virtually and in person. The good thing about Neighborhood Watches is that over the years it has now changed. So you don't actually have to physically go out and actually do a physical patrol. If you're out walking your dog, if you're out going for your exercise, going to work or to school, coming home from work or school, you just look around the neighborhood and you know what's normal in your neighborhood. So that's the concept of the new Neighborhood Watch. We don't need people to actually physically go on patrols. Just, hey, when you are going out, look around, see what looks right. If something doesn't look right, call us so we can come address it. So we did push that out also. So we do through the neighborhood watch, the trainings for those citizens and for those communities that actually want the training. So that's definitely still offered. Next slide, please. Something new that we're offering is this is the craze training. So with all this thing that are going on, unfortunately, we do have a training that we've pushed out to the citizens about what to do if you're involved in an active violence incident, or rather active shooter event. You're going to the mall, you're going shopping, you're at the movie theater. Pretty much it just gives you ideas of, hey, what to expect, what you should do, and how to protect yourself. So I've given this training to the staff at Walmart. I've done that for some school staff. I've done it for some community groups. Pretty much it's something we offer because we do see these incidents are happening. So it's best to be prepared just in case something happens. It's best to know or have an idea of what I can do to protect myself. And a big part of it is, hey, thinking about it ahead of time, because unfortunately the way times is going, it can happen. And if it does happen, we'd rather you be prepared mentally and then actually take those actions. It's best to know, it's best not to wait till the incident happened and then you try to figure out, hey, where am I going? What am I doing? What's going to happen? So we give this training so people can understand, hey, here's what some ideas to think about. Here's some things you can think about to help yourself be prepared just in case something happens. So that's training. It's called a craze training, civilian response to active shooter events. And pretty much it's very similar to the thing that the government pushed out years ago, to run, hide, fight. It's pretty similar to that. We just added some new concepts to it. Next slide, please. So with all those service calls we go to, we realize that, hey, the citizens need a way to contact the services that they need, not always having to call the police. So with the assistance of Supervisor Stork's office, we created this trifold. So on this trifold, it gives you different information of how to contact those services you need without having to always call the police. It gives you the mental health services, it gives you the fire department, it gives you locations, it shows you how to report incidents online, it gives you different social media sites. Next slide, please. And also gives you who to call if you need mental health services. It gives you information about crime solvers. So pretty much this trifold gives you a lot of information without always having to call the police if you need something. So we created this trifold, we handed it out in the community, we sent it online through Nextdoor a couple of times. We actually handed it out to other different district stations so they can modify it for their community. So we saw that all those service calls, hey, there's something going on that we need to assist people to get those services they need. And if it's just mental health services, if it's medical services, this provides them a way to get those services, not always having to call the police, and maybe go directly to those services. Next slide, please. So one of the good things that we do enjoy is our community outreach. So along the police department, along with our cadet post, Unit 2252, which meets at West Potomac High School, we do a lot of community events with the community. We do Boy Scouts events. We do National Night Out. We let the cadets get some service hours in. They dress up like McGruff, and pretty much it helps us interact with the community, but also it also helps us interact with the young community of Mount Vernon, showing them that, hey, we're here to support them, and also give them something to look forward to doing. So if they get in high school, they want to be part of a group, hey, we're always accepting kids into a public safety cadet corps. Once again, we go out in the community, go to community events, assist them with different ways. And like I say, it helps the young people get service hours. So a lot of these cadets are getting service hours for high school, and it helps them kind of develop a relationship with us and the community also. Next slide, please. And that is it for Mount Vernon. I'm open to any questions you might have.
Thank you, Marvin. If anyone has any questions, you can put them in the chat. We have someone reading them, or if you want to come off mute, please do so at this time. I do want to put a plug in that Officer Goodley and his team and Officer Watts, Katie Watts, they are very integral in some of our projects that we do in the community. They have done things like he said with National Night Out. They've done a trunk or treat for the community, as well as we've for the holidays, we've identified some families that may need some assistance with gifts and items for their families. We've actually identified some youth in the communities. They were able to do shop with the cop at Target. And I think you all have a health fair coming up. Is it the end of this month or next month?
Well, it's not our health fair, but
Oh,
it's
okay.
the health fair at Gum Springs. We do participate in that one also.
Okay, I thought there was something happening at Mount Vernon Station as well. So,
Oh, it was supposed to be next month. We're supposed to do our community day.
Oh,
but we
okay.
just saw we having some construction with at the station, so we might have to push that back a little
oh, okay, okay. The word gets out fast. See.
bit. Yep.
Any questions for Officer Goodley?
I had a question. I had two, please.
Okay.
Okay. I was trying to see if it had a hand thing, but I can't see it on this. Is it like you can put your hand up?
Yes, it's under reactions. It's like the fifth tab. It's fifth or sixth. It says reactions.
Okay, raise hand. All right.
Yeah,
there
but
you
you're good. Go ahead.
All right. There you go. Okay, just and again, of course, I want to thank him. Thank him so much for his presentation, Officer Goodley. But I had a couple questions, please.
Yes.
I saw where the assault calls that came in on the crime.
Right.
And I didn't see what was broken out based on, and I'm assuming assault, domestic violence come under
Right,
assault.
right.
I'm assuming that for the sake of
So the
argument.
domestic violence is a separate category.
But
Because,
I didn't see it on that.
see what happens is so those were class A offenses.
Okay,
We have class B offenses.
okay,
So all our crime stuff is separated into serious and not serious. So domestic
Okay.
violence is always very serious. Some
Right.
assaults might not be serious because someone might push you. There's not really injury, but with
Right.
domestic violence, it's automatic felony. So those are going under
Okay.
different classification. So for domestic violence, there's actually two different charges. So you got your regular domestic violence charge, and then you might have a strangulation charge.
Hmm.
Someone chokes someone. So domestic violence is always a separate charge by itself now in the code. So it's actually domestic assault.
but it's included in those percentages that you gave, or it wasn't?
It wasn't included in those percentages
Okay.
because I just did class A just so you can see
Okay, the
what the
difference.
offenses. So there's a class B offenses that I could have added in it also.
Okay, okay. Well, I thank you, because I just see it where it was separated, and I wondered about that. Now, I had another question, please. Now, you were saying, and I was shocked, to be quite honest. I lived in Mount Vernon, it looked like forever, that we have so many service calls, you
Right.
know? And truthfully, honestly, to me, that's good news, but bad news for you all. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
That I'd rather for you all to be running around because of service than running around because bang, bang, you know,
right.
that's the way I
Right.
feel about that as a resident of Mount Vernon. But my question to you, because you were saying that a tripod went out on the contact information, which I think I applaud that. However, my question, why is it increased training on the dispatchers? Because I personally, just like I call in the non-emergency number, if it's something that, you know, obviously I just want an officer to check out or whatever the case is.
Right.
But training on the dispatchers so that they can automatically send those calls out to the service people that they can
Well,
Man-
I don't know. I can't give you exact reason why because I don't have anything to do with the dispatchers. But if I can have to guess, our dispatchers only dispatch for the police department and the fire department. So those
Okay.
service calls like for mental health. So that means someone have to call Woodburn Mental Health. Our
Right,
dispatchers aren't doing. They don't dispatch Woodburn Mental Health.
right,
So they only dispatch for the fire department and the police department. So if you needed Woodburn Mental Health and you call the police department, you're going to get a police officer that's going to come over, say, no, she needs Woodburn Mental Health. Then we'll call.
okay.
So our dispatchers don't do that,
But
unfortunately.
that's what I'm saying, in that case, and maybe it's just me, why that particular call or possibly go to the non-emergency and then the non-emergency figure out where that call, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it
I'm
should.
just thinking
That'd be
it's-
quick,
that's a
but they
big
don't do that.
Percentage, a
Right.
percentage of calls, a percentage of numbers for service, you know what I'm saying?
So now
So-
they're actually supposed to. We're actually creating a co-responder for the police and mental health. So they're actually creating a co-responder. Actually, it just got funded through the county budget,
Okay,
where mental health professionals and police will be working together. That will include a mental health professional that will sit at our dispatch center.
okay,
So they are trying to move that
Okay,
along.
okay.
So now when those calls come in, that mental health professional know that, hey, well, that's
Okay.
a mental health call. But once
Okay.
again, it had to get funded and had the people and
training
how
on,
to go with that.
So that's gonna be a minute. It's not gonna be an hour. but
No,
it's a
actually
minute.
got funded. So hopefully now they got
Right.
hire people. So this county
that's-
budget actually funded 9 positions.
Oh,
So hopefully now there's all about hiring people.
that's good. Whereas that 64% should come down.
Right. That's for our service calls. Right.
Right, okay. Those are my questions, and thank you, sir, for answering them.
Yep.
And Marvin, we do have a question in the chat from Shirley Ann Short, kind of plays off of that. What types of calls do require the non-emergency number?
Suspicious person, suspicious event, hear strange sound, see a strange car, see a strange person, non-emergency accident that happened in front of your house. No one's hurt, but like someone ran over and their cars broke down, disabled vehicles, anything that's not an emergency where it's life-threatening. Hey, I lost my wallet at Walmart. I need to report it because my driver's license in there. You can call a non-emergency number for that.
And I do think one other person had their hand up.
Yeah, that would be me. So I wanted to ask you, thank you, first of all, for all the service that you guys do. Appreciate that. I wanted to ask you, since you're missing about 7 or 8 people from your staff, how are you gonna, I mean, you guys are critical service. How are you gonna manage this? And what do you, I mean, you said you made some changes, but
right.
what are you doing? And what about training and stuff like that? How are you guys working training with such limited staff?
Well, so what we have done because of staffing issues, so our neighborhood patrol team, we actually had 6 of them. So they took 4 of them, put them back on patrol. Our neighborhood patrol is now only 2 people. And they moved some people around and shortened some hours. So where we have more of an overlap of the squads. So our evening unit, instead of being totally 12, as you saw, they're down to like 5. You put those people, just divide those people onto day work, and then you kind of lengthen day work's hours a little bit. So now evenings is like really the bridge between the 2 shifts. Unfortunately, staffing is causing us to kind of like make some changes around exactly, you know, how many we have and where we can place them, which also means some of the specialty services we used to do, we're not gonna be able to do anymore, or it's gonna be harder for us to do. Like before, we used to have people that go out there and just sit out there and do traffic enforcement. Don't have time for that, don't have the staffing for that. We used to have a set person that you call them and say, hey, I got these people that's passing a stop school bus in my community, traffic issues in my community. We had a set person that just did that. This way, it's not actually hampering on patrol. Don't have that anymore. So a lot of the specialty stuff we had to move out and put them back in patrol because the numbers are going down.
Yeah, I hope you can staff up soon. I appreciate that. Thanks for your answer.
Yep.
We have a couple more questions in the chat. Shirley Ann Short has another question. Do you receive help from state police, and are you receiving mutual aid from other jurisdictions?
That only happens in a case of emergency, like dire emergency. And before that, what happened, we'll actually bring officers from another station over. So we partner, we border Franconia. So if it got really bad, we're bringing officers from Franconia or officers from West Springfield. So we don't receive mutual aid unless we're actually at a critical point. Like, and by that, if that happens, you'll see officers from quite a few other stations come down first.
Okay, we have another question in the chat, but first, got some hands raised. Oliver?
You can hear me? You guys can hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, perfect. So, yeah, I also want to say thank you for your service. But I was wondering, when you said that you guys are understaffed, what are you guys doing to gain retention as far as keeping your
well, we have,
is there like a compensation thing that you guys are trying to do? Like,
right. Well, the chief has formed a new retention committee that's going around looking at ways in which they can retain people as well as recruit people also. Unfortunately, we're in a very precarious situation where we're located, our competition is the federal government. Sometimes we can't compete with the federal government. because they can offer things that we can't offer. Like for the military people, if you're coming out of the military, let's say you did 10 years in the military, you come out of the military, you go apply for a federal job, they can give you 10 years of service. So now you're starting with 10 years. We can't give you that because we're on a different system. So in this particular region, we're competing with quite a few other agencies around here. If we go to different regions, sometimes the law enforcement, there's only 1 or 2 agencies. So now the recruitment's easier. Around here, we got so many agencies around here, including the federal government, including the state. Competition is really hard. So really, we're trying to retain people and also trying to get new people to come in. It is hard because it is about a salary. It is about money. It is about benefits. So what people are doing now is they're picking, hey, who has better benefits, who has a better salary, and pretty much it's in their hands now.
Hey, Marvin, in the chat, Deborah mentions that she's called the non-emergency number for the man that panhandles on Lockheed and Richmond
Right.
Highway at the intersection. He's
Right.
very aggressive when he walks between cars. He knocks on drivers' car windows.
We deal with that gentleman a lot. We have actually locked him up a couple of times. Pretty much the county and really the board has, and it was kind of surprising to me, but it is what it is. We have been told it is their constitutional right. If they want to panhandle for money, they just can't block traffic. So whenever we see them blocking traffic, we engage them, we get them out of the traffic. But if they want to stand in an intersection and panhandle for money, the county has told us, leave them alone.
And I think Brian's got our last question with his hand up.
Yeah, thank you, and appreciate Officer Goodley, and thank you for your service. Thanks for being here tonight. And question about some more of the challenges that you might have. I assume and would like you to maybe confirm or deny this challenge, which is the jurisdictional issues with enforcement of different types of laws and ordinances for you. National Park Service, the City of Alexandria, Highway Patrol, Virginia Highway Patrol, Maryland Highway Patrol, all kinds of different things going on as far as jurisdictional issues when a vehicle may pass from one jurisdiction to another. Can you tell me a little bit about how that's handled?
It's handled. It's all about who is the original jurisdiction where it starts at. So let's say Prince George's County is chasing a car that's involved in a bank robbery. He crosses the bridge, comes in Fairfax. We will follow them and provide support to them. So whoever the original agency that starts whatever it is going, they're the agency that controls it. We provide support to them. Just like if something happened here and we go into another jurisdiction, that jurisdiction will provide aid to us as long as we need it. So pretty much whoever the original jurisdiction, it's theirs. We just provide support and backup. And then once it's concluded, depends on what the laws are, depends on where they are. Like if someone from Alex City chasing someone into Fairfax, it's concluded, they can actually just take that person back to Alex City because you're in the state of Virginia and we're a neighboring jurisdiction. Someone from Maryland comes over, chase someone here, and it's concluded, we have to actually take them to a magistrate. That technically now they are fugitive from justice. You gotta go through those whole laws and see if they agree to be extradited back. If they agree to be extradited back, then they can go back. If they don't agree to be extradited back, then we have to have a trial in front of a judge, and he has to look at probable cause and all that good stuff. So within the state, they can just take them back to a neighboring jurisdiction, Alexandria, Prince William, Arlington, they can just take them back. From outside the state, fugitive from justice, you have to actually go in front of a magistrate or a judge before you just take them back. And same thing for us if we're going to Maryland. We have to go to their magistrate, their judge, before we can just take someone back into Virginia.
But those are all the questions I see at this time. Thank you, Marvin.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you all for all of your questions. Again, if you didn't get a chance to answer them, please put them in the chat and we will connect you. Officer Goodley, if you don't mind putting your email in the chat or phone number, that would be great. I know there are a couple people who asked for certain things. I want to be able to communicate that to you, to seeing if you can, if you could provide some information, further information to some of our participants, that would be great. All right, next we have Officer Acegueda, who is with the Franconia Police Station, and she will present next. Raman, you can go ahead and put her slides back on.
What's her name? So, hello, everyone. I'm Officer Cindy Osegueda, the right way to say it.
There you go. See, I was trying. I was trying.
Yes, you were close enough. I accept whatever it is. So hello, everyone, again. I have been on patrol at Franconia Police Station for about 6.5 years. I started with this position as the community outreach officer in November, so I'm fairly still new, still learning. So I've been here, and I do have my partner, Sean Corcoran, who also helps me in the office. So I'll be explaining what we both kind of do. So next slide, please. So some of you guys may know we have 8 district police stations throughout the county. Franconia Police Station is Station 6. We are located in 6121 Franconia Road. And this is just an overall map of the county. And as you can see there, Franconia is right in between Mount Vernon and West Springfield. So we do share like that boundary jurisdiction line, even though we're all still Fairfax County police officers. Yep. Next slide, yeah. So this one's just a closer look at Franconia map. We are 51 square miles. We do have 10 patrol areas at the moment. We do cover like areas like Annandale, Springfield, partially, because we do share Springfield with West Springfield. We do cover the mall, the Springfield Town Center, Kingstown, and part of Lorton as well. So this is the reason why I'm explaining the jurisdictions or some boundaries from the Board of Supervisors. So the north end, we run in from Little River Turnpike all the way down to Route 1. And throughout the whole 51 square miles, we do deal with 3 different Board of Supervisors. So the north end is Supervisor Gross, and then the center is what we have here, and we share office or buildings with Supervisor Lusk. And of course, you guys are very familiar with the Supervisor Stork's office, which covers Lorton area, part of Franconia. Okay. So staffing, I'm so glad I went second after Marvin, because he took care of our staffing issues and a lot of issues. So I'm gonna go through my slides a little bit faster because it is a lot of repetitive, because what he does is basically the same things we kind of do here in Franconia. So we do have 118 sworn officers and 20 civilians. That includes our crossing guards. We did just get assigned probably this past Saturday a new captain, which is Captain John Lieb. We still have the same assistant commander, First Lieutenant Erica Webb, and our administrative assistant, Donna Haber. We do have the same amount of shifts, 2-day work shifts, 2 evening work, 2 midnights. We do have PCAs that handle the front desk. We have detectives here on scene, about 7 of them. And we do have a crime scene, 4 shopping center unit that focus on at the mall. Anything related to the mall, they are there. And then we do have my partner, as I mentioned, as the crime prevention officer. I'm the community outreach, the 8 SROs, 1 crime analyst, 7 auxiliaries, and 2 VIPs, which they do great work and volunteer for us all the time. 6 crossing guards, 1 victim services, and we do have a chaplain. So like I mentioned, there's 2 here at the office. Next slide, please. So we again do, my partner Sean does the neighborhood watch, and it's basically you guys would be the eyes and ears while we're not around. Like Marvin said, you guys know your neighborhoods best, and sometimes when we're not there, you guys can help us and give us information on what's going on in your neighborhood. So that's a service that is done. So other services that my partner Sean does, and we all work together for some of these as well. We do free security surveys. It could be for homes or businesses, even churches. We do the same thing that Marvin does, which is like CRACE, which is live, run, hide, and fight for any active shooter situation. It could be for business or churches. Or any organization. We have done it virtually and in person. We're slowly going back in person. People are starting to feel more comfortable since COVID. We also attend annual HOA meetings just to give like an update on or any questions they may have. We also do de-escalation seminar, which is also very helpful in having like organizations understand ways on like or signs to help like maybe a coworker or anyone that's around how to de-escalate a situation when someone is acting or becoming disorderly. So that's very helpful. And reality checks, which is my partner basically is an instructor and partners with Inova. And it's basically a class for students and parents to have the teenager become a safer driver. So it's a very good course and it happens every 2 months. So, and then my partner is also an instructor with he works together with the juvenile system and probation office to basically focus on those first offender juveniles. So the community outreach, some of the things we do here at the office, we do have Police and Faith Community, which we do meet every fourth Tuesday of the month and address any concerns that any churches, community members from any worship houses have that they want to talk about, whether they want to know about a topic from FCPD. We do bring guest speakers, so we have that. If there's an event that the community may have that they want us there, we do show up and show them support with information stuff. We do food drives. We go to the schools. Right now I'm serving as a mentor to a young 11-year-old girl. Has gone great. I love it. Love the experience. And we do like Meet the Commanders Day where you can come out to your jurisdiction and we pick a spot and you just come and chat and meet your commanders of your district. We do walk and talks in the community where we just basically talk and people approach us, we approach them and we just kind of talk, get to know us, our presence in the community, and we do scout night tours as well. So we also have the Franconia CAC. We do meet every third Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. here at Franconia Station. We recently started in person. We were doing virtually, but COVID is going down a little bit now. So we're meeting back here in the community room at Franconia. And then I believe next week on the I believe it's the 23rd or can't remember right now, but our next topic would be like K9 unit. And then next month in June will be like our search and rescue team. So we have like different guest speakers. And there's the coordinator information if you do want to stop by and get in the distribution list. So Franconia also distributes a newsletter every month. So usually at the beginning. And it's basically very informative. It talks about all kinds of things like calls for service, crime statistics, crimes on the rise, upcoming events, any announcements we may have for the community. Basically anything that you can, see going on in Franconia. And there's the information on how to subscribe. And the reason to subscribe is just basically to get your guaranteed copy every month. And yeah, so that's the, if you're interested, you can write that down. The link is there to register. We also have Nextdoor. So it's just another like online platform where we make announcements, what's going on, just like the newsletter, but Nextdoor, we also use it kind of like different ways on how to communicate with the public. So if you guys don't have that, you guys can definitely join and see our posts. We also participate in a national night out, which is going to be coming up in August pretty soon. So we're going to slowly be preparing on that. And it's just an annual police community partnership where we stop by at different like block parties, festivals, parades, or cookouts, and just build that relationship with people in our community. So we also, some of the outreach we do is Coffee with a Cop. And people just come out, grab coffee, and just talk to us, whether they have a question about anything or whether they need information. We have like an information desk or giveaways for children, which they love, as you can see there, and just time to get to know each other, basically. So, and then our next Coffee with a Cop will be in Lorton for the first time. So I wanted to reach out to that area of the community. And it will be on Saturday, May 21st at the Dunkin' Donuts at the Lorton Market Street. So you guys are, down in Lorton, you guys want to stop by, say hello to us, you can do that as well. So invitations for everyone. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Cindy. Just want to put a plug in for Franconia District Station as well. The many great things that Franconia Police Station does for our various communities. Definitely, with the coffee with the cop. And please, if you have not already, join the newsletter. Both police stations have the opportunity to join their newsletter to get information, to hear updates on what's going on, as well as a Nextdoor. I know I see all the posts from Nextdoor, as well as when people have questions. There's someone usually that responds. Sometimes I see Officer Cindy's information on there as well. So I know they're very responsive.
Cindy, we do have one question in the chat. Can you help explain why Franconia covers 3 areas? Shouldn't police follow the same Fairfax County jurisdictions? You're on mute.
Sorry. Okay. So where I think, so it's a little bit confusing. So the 3 areas is coming from the Board of Supervisor boundaries, but Franconia basically covers 51 square miles. So that is a little confusing. Even when I started back here in this position, it was a little confusing as the boundaries and jurisdictions from the Board of Supervisors office, and then the jurisdiction from the police side. But we do cover more than 3 areas, like I mentioned earlier. And it's just part of the Board of Supervisors. So we do cover a lot.
I think that's all the questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. We appreciate the both of you for coming on tonight from our public safety entities and explaining the great work that you do. We thank you for your service. And if you want to put your information in the chat as well, that would be great. So if anyone has any further comments or questions or need to connect, please feel free to do so. All right, moving right along, because we know we're still trying to stay with our time frame, which is not always perfect, because you guys give us some great information to have a good discussion. So we appreciate you. Next, we have our Cert presentation by Jim Mcfeeders. Jim, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Ram is going to put that up for you.
Okay, great. My name is Jim Mcfeeders. I've been with the Fairfax County Community Emergency Response Team since 2014. First of all, I'd like to congratulate all of you for stepping forward and engaging with the community neighborhood college. I am, as a volunteer myself, I fully appreciate any citizen that's willing to take the extra step and get involved. So well done. I've got 3 objectives that I'd like to cover tonight. First of all, a brief discussion on how you can better prepare yourselves, your families, and your neighborhoods to respond to disasters and emergencies. The second thing is I want to introduce you to the Fairfax County Cert program, what it's about, what it does. And finally, I'd like to invite and encourage you to investigate us with the idea of joining us, taking the free training and being more effective and better prepared to deal with emergencies in certainly in our county, in your district, and when you're on your own, on vacation up in the North Woods or down on the beach. About myself, I'm a true believer in this. I am a born again Cert preparedness person, and I strongly believe and appreciate in just good citizenry, which you all are demonstrating, and in being prepared. I've been in enough emergencies myself to where I know the value of it. Next, please. Next slide. Cert, Community Emergency Response Team. It is, we'll be talking more about it, what it does in detail, but when I use the acronym Cert, this is what it is. Next, please. Now, my understanding is you have the handout package, so I'm going to be moving through it quickly, following our police officers' good example of trying to stay on time, and leave some time for questions. The idea here is you don't know where you're going to be when disaster strikes. So it's hard to turn on the nightly news, the national news, and not see a story where the people in Oklahoma are trying to put a city back together that got hit by a tornado. Nobody predicted that was going to happen. The hurricanes that come up the Florida coast, the flooding that takes place in Huntington, all of those things. We know that it's the time of year and certain things happen. Things that are absolutely unpredictable are the fires that break out in a complex, or a rogue shooter that creates havoc and discontent. So any place, any time, where are you going to be? Next, please. Next. And next. Okay, so I'd like you to be thinking about this as I'm talking, and hopefully taking notes to yourself about things to investigate, talk about with people back home. What is it you can do? Where will you be? What would you be able to do? Start by thinking about, where do you spend most of your time? For many of us, that's at home and at work, in the work environment. Now, if there's something else that you do, if you have a job that keeps you on the road a great deal of the time, perhaps you also want to think about being in air terminals and an airport, in a travel situation, on the commuter train between here and New York. Think about that first. And then I'm going to take you through just a series of things to, you've seen this before. We see it on the nightly news regularly. We have wind. We have the derecho that came through several years back, and it had a serious impact on public safety in Fairfax County. As good as the county is about providing fire, rescue, and police services right off the top in terms of public service, the emergency center phone system was taken down. So wind can really do a job on us. And next, please. Winter brings on its own special problems. A couple of years ago, you're kind of getting ahead of me here on the slides. Okay. And the winter brings its own special problems. You know that from your neighborhoods and your experiences. One thing that you might think about if you're going to do any kind of preparedness training at work in particular, somebody transfers in and they say, oh, I came from up north. I came from Erie, Pennsylvania. I know all about snow and ice. They know about heavy snow and ice, but they don't appreciate is the kind of icing that we get down here, the black ice, and how treacherous that is. And when they experience it the first time, they are humbled. So, you take what you know and you're passing it along, particularly to your newer and often younger employees. So next. Flooding, we have limited flooding around here. I say limited, but it's not limited if it's your house that's flooded out. People in and around Huntington have a real problem with it. And I would also suggest next that consider your residence and where you're trying to get in and out of. Like in my case, I'm in the Lorton area. I have a number of hills that and swales that it's very possible that I have both of the main arteries coming in and out of my neighborhood where they are submerged. I know Vienna has a couple of very wet, tricky spots as well. You want to kind of scope those out ahead of time and plan ahead about how you're going to get in and out when things get wet. On terms of tornadoes, we're not in the Oklahoma Panhandle here, but we know from experience that tornadoes do come through the area, and they can cause problems. And so we just, again, watch the nightly news. And in my own mind, I'm very thankful that we don't have these tornado strikes coming through. They are totally devastating. Finally, we get to the man-made emergencies, and that this was a case where in Centerville, housing complex caught fire. In 2018, there were 125 senior residents that were left homeless. I know about this because Cert responded to that and did a lot of work with the county agencies that respond to these sort of things. We sat at tables, did registration, logged people in and out of the area so they could retrieve their belongings. It's certainly very upsetting to them, and but how are you prepared for house fires, particularly in apartments and condominiums? You know, what would you do? How ready are you to survive if you come home and because of the police and fire lines, you can't get into your residence? So you're left with this situation. Oh my God, you know, where do I start? What do I do? And if you haven't given some thought to it ahead of time, you're going to be chasing the problem, and that's not a good place to be. So I want to talk about our first responders. In my opinion, Fairfax County is the place to live. I've been able to associate with our first responders, police, fire, and rescue. They're just the best. Concerned about citizenry, concerned about the big picture, keeping people safe, the courtesy, the concern, the ownership for our safety. It just can't be beat. It's been a, and these are the people who are going to respond, but until they can show up, you're going to be the help until help arrives. Let's see the next slide. And again, I thought all of these were stripped out. I apologize for these. I need to strip all these out. So again, question comes down to what can you do until help arrives? The term that our uniformed safety people use is that they're first responders, when in fact, if it happens in your community, you are really the first responder. You're the first one on scene. You may be the one that's calling 911. So what can you do, if anything, until they show up? We've got, again, you saw that the 10 square miles in the county, we have a population here that's akin to the state population of Hawaii, an awful lot of people, a lot of different situations, businesses, residences, industrial zones, a lot of hazardous materials travel in and out of here. And the Cert program helps make me and my fellow Certs aware of the scope of and the nature of some of the challenges that we might find. Next. So I talked here about the police and the firefighters and the EMS. Again, they are the best. But when a real disaster occurs, the dispatch center is going, they have their algorithms, and they're going to send these resources to the place where they can do the most good for the most people in the most critical situations. So you may have what you think is to be a real noteworthy emergency in your neighborhood, but it may be 3 or 4 hours or up to 3 days, perhaps, before anybody in authority comes into your work area or neighborhood. Cert helps us think about and prepare for and to shelter in place, to have stores in place, to take emergency actions, including medical, that will help our neighbors, to help our families get through this critical period. Next. Again. So are you prepared? What does that mean? Are you informed? Have you thought about the situations that could impact you? Do you have any checklists? Do you have any bags that are pre-prepared? And things that we think about, just the people within the sound of my voice tonight, we're thinking about folks that look like us, our age, our abilities. But how about any of the aged folks that are living with you at home? Or the old lady that lives next door that is, you know, getting more and more dependent on you every year. children in the family, infants, they have very, very special needs and very, very special go kits. And let's not forget about Fido and Fluffy, your pets. And when things get very, very bad, you know, it's an emotional draw that you have to them, and we're not going to leave them high and dry. So have you given any thought to preparing for them, having spare medications available and their needs, food, water, and the rest? Next. There are a number of resources, both starting with FEMA down through state and county, that will help you prepare. Now, the Cert training program of about 24 hours will walk you through all of these things. And then we have continuing education classes, which will take you through in even more detail, but it helps you think about and bound the problem, the issues, the challenges that you might face to where you develop a family disaster plan. When bad things happen in Fairfax County, how are you going to let your relatives down in Birmingham or up in Maine know that you're okay? How does that work, particularly when all of the communications are in overload? Many of us experienced that very thing during 9/11 when the cell service just came to a grinding halt. How do you get through that? Cert has a methodology that will help talk you through that. And in very short order, you can help solve that problem for yourself. We'd like to plan on 72 hours of being ready and being self-sufficient. Well, what does that mean? Do you have water? Do you have food? Can you get through 3 days with any special needs that your family might have? Do you have medical supplies set aside? Once again, fire and rescue may not be able to get here because they're dealing with other areas, or in the worst case situation, they may not even be able to access your neighborhood because the highways are down and blocked and passable. The next slide. Family disaster plans are probably one of the easier things that you can do. You get on it right away. How do you, specific actions that you can take, specific preparations, the water and food that I talked about. Little things like if you've got 2 cars in the family, for example, when we know that there's a storm coming through, we'll put one with a neighbor partner that we have. We will exchange 1 car so that 1 car is in each other's garage in case the garage gets clobbered by a tree and you can't get either car out. At least you've got one vehicle that's pre-positioned someplace else. That's a silly little thing that I never would have thought of, but in fact, you can see the value in it, particularly when you drive through your neighborhood and you see trees blocking driveways and streets and actually having fallen on houses. Again. The emergency kits, we talked about the 72-hour emergency supply kit. I'll talk about some other kits that you're going to want to think about. Mentioned a kit for children, a kit for pets. With the training and the background that I've had, I've watched with interest how the people are coping in Ukraine when they've had to evacuate. What kinds of things did I see them carrying? And there were some people who evacuated early and had time to pull some of the necessities together. In other cases, you saw families that they got out with the 1 suitcase and the child's doll, and that was it. And I'm thinking, with the luxury that we have on this side of the ocean, we can do better. I can do better in terms of pre-positioning what the family and I think are necessities and things that will fit in the car. And if I have to evacuate, what kinds of things might I want to take? Your critical legal documents are a good example. What is it that you wished you would have had if you can't get back to the house? What papers? Do you have a document go kit? And in some cases, those can be digitized and you carry it with you on your laptop or whatever. In other cases, you really need to see the paper. So those are things to that you will be exposed to and consider in your Cert training. Next. One of the absolute critical things that you can do tonight is sign up for Fairfax Alerts. I can't recommend that highly enough for those of you that have not signed up for it. It gives you everything from weather alerts, winter storm warnings, flood warnings, traffic alerts, and it is customizable to where you can sign up for the kinds of announcements and emergencies that you'd like to be notified of, on what device you'd like to be notified, phone, text, whatever, and email. And then you can even select the time of day that you'd like this to be active, so that for a windstorm or a rainstorm that's coming through at 2 o'clock in the morning, you might prefer not to be awakened at 1:30 with this alert that, hey, you're going to get a lot of rain here in the next half hour. Well, by the time you get up, it's not going to matter anymore. And you decide that your sleep is more important. You can customize these alerts to your lifestyle and your preferences. I can't recommend this highly enough. This is just a tremendous service. Montgomery County also has the service, as do other jurisdictions around the Washington metropolitan area. Next. So now to pitch Cert. What is Cert? It's a volunteer program put on by, that's run by FEMA. It's a national program. We have Certs in Fairfax County that were trained in Los Angeles, San Antonio, Milwaukee, just from around the country. And it's the same consistent training. It's training that is monitored and standardized by FEMA, so that, see, the other day I brought in somebody from Florida, and when I used certain terminology, they knew exactly what I was saying. They knew exactly what to do. So it educates you all about disaster preparedness. It provides an initial 24 hours of basic training that covers situational awareness, medical, providing safety for yourself. And it's all about neighbors helping neighbors. The first neighbor being helping you and your family being better prepared, your next door neighbors being better prepared. If you've got family living in the area, there have been times when I've, through Fairfax Alerts, where I saw the wind warning for the derecho that came through, and I was able to call my family and then alert my neighborhood team that there was something unusual coming through, and they needed to get their furniture off the decks and patios and to hunker down. We were in for a good blow. Next, please. So our program began in 2003. It was spawned from a study group in Los Angeles who were following the people in Mexico who were responding from earthquakes. There was a study found that there, for 1,000 people that were rescued by untrained, what we call spontaneous untrained volunteers, for that 1,000 people that were saved, that were rescued by the non-professionals, 100 of them were severely injured. In some cases, they were fatalities. And the emergency preparedness professionals decided that with training the civilians in the various neighborhoods, people like you and me, they could do a lot better. They could make us more effective, more efficient, and at a much safer pace than what had been experienced in the past. After you take the basic training, we have a system where we, by zip code, we assign you, we recognize which zip code you're in, and then we provide you with a neighborhood, the name and contact information of a neighborhood team leader. And then within that neighborhood, within that zip code, and in some cases smaller than a zip code, because the zip codes are so big in some cases, you actually form a neighborhood community team. OEM has got a booklet out that is the neighborhood emergency response guide. It walks you through in tremendous detail things that you and your neighbors decide are important and things that you want to prepare for. For example, in some places in the county, they have to worry about living under air control routes, and they don't want things falling out of skies on them. So that they deal with that. Huntington has to deal with flooding in some cases. So all of those things are important, and they can be customized by you and your team within your neighborhood. Next, please. The training is free, it runs 8 sessions, about 24 hours, and with a practical, and you can see the people here, some of the outfitted and some of the gear that's issued to you. You decide how much you want to get involved after you have the basic training, and you don't have to get involved. If you just want to take the training and then go home, that's okay too. In either case, it's free, but it's great training for you and for your teenagers if you want to bring them in as well. Next. Very briefly here, here's kind of a litany of the kinds of things that you would be exposed to. I just want you to be aware that these are the kinds of things that we do in class. And for each of these things, we do a practical. So it's not just sitting there being lectured at, it's actually hands-on exercises where you use the equipment that you saw in the previous display. They're actually doing and practicing the skills that you're learning in lecture. Next. Some of the capabilities. So what is it that we do with this? I'm going to lean back a year and a half or so. We were very active in serving the community with things like food distribution during the pandemic. We worked very closely with several of the Fairfax County agencies. It was very rewarding work. The agencies capitalized on our training, on our chain of command, on our coordination, and knowing that when you employed somebody to go out and do a task, that they would come back safe, because that's one of our main sayings is that I'm the most important person here, meaning that I'm responsible for myself to look around and make sure that I do not walk into a dangerous situation. Next slide, please. So we're very focused on supporting the community. We provide safety observers and traffic managers for neighborhood fun runs so that we don't have people going out on a nice spring Saturday morning to have a nice 5K run and get themselves run over in the process. We are stationed at intersections. We, as safety observers, guiding the runners and guiding the traffic so that we keep them separate. That's just an example of some of the stuff that we can do. Next. So once again, we're very engaged in connecting with the communities, doing exactly what I'm doing here. What can I bring to you? How can I make you and your family safer? How can I alert you to this free training? What's available to you? What's available in the county? So that when you go back and pursue some of the other areas that you've learned in this neighborhood college, you'll be aware that Cert's out there, and you'll know that you can participate. You can encourage others to participate. And this is a free asset. Once again, what it takes is it's a commitment of time that you're going to volunteer just as you're volunteering now. So next slide. So that's it. That's Cert. And on the final slide, I'll give you some contact information. The Cert mission for Fairfax County is to facilitate all our county residents being better prepared to face an emergency, man-made or not in nature. And we do that in using 3 main legs of the stool: in training, through operations, and through community engagement. And this is an example of engaging with the community. And it was a pleasure listening to the police presentation and knowing more about your program tonight. And that concludes what I have for this evening.
Hey, Jim, we do have one hand up. Otis? And you're on mute.
Jim, I'm sorry, Otis Langford here. Jim, I often wondered why there's not a, what I would call a Cert for seniors, and replacing the C with an S, because we've got a lot of senior communities in Fairfax County, communities that are grouped together. And it seems to me the things you talk about in your general Cert program are mainly for younger people. There are communities here where seniors are grouped together, and the ability to do the types of things that you address is not going to be available to them. And so I often wonder why states or federal level, they haven't created a seniors program for emergency response.
I would thank you for raising that question and that issue. And I will say to you that there's absolutely nothing in the CERT program that precludes us from applying that to a senior's situation where we could get very, very specific. For example, an assisted living community could absolutely have a CERT program and have it be customized to their special needs. Now, we wouldn't get into a lot of the heavy lifting and the cribbing and moving damaged walls, a collapsed wall on somebody. But in terms of some of the basics like checking on each other, and you can do that in a community. Some communities, every other house is a totally retired family where husband and wife are in their 80s and 90s. And Springfield off of Rolling Road is a perfect example of that. And there's no reason at all why that community cannot get organized, receive the free training. We customize the training to exactly what their needs might be, their most probable problems, and customize it to that. I think that's the beauty in this program, but it takes somebody who's interested, some community leader who's going to stand up and say, hey, I'll be the point of contact here, and we can hold the training in my living room or in my backyard. And what are the kinds of things, asking those people, what are your biggest concerns? What are you most worried about? And then feeding them questions that they should think about. What would happen if you're not able to get to Giant and get your medications refilled? Do you have, what kind of a safety valve do you have? How long can you go without getting your meds refilled? How long? Yeah, the same thing with dog food, and the same thing with just canned goods in their house or water. These are typically people I know from my mother-in-law, for example. I just know that she, despite all my coaching and whatnot, she doesn't know that I have stored water in her basement in case she can't get water. So I think it's an excellent question. I don't know of any federal program that does that, but here you've got a local program. And if you know of a community that's interested in that, you'll have my contact information. I'd be happy to talk to those people about it.
Yeah, I think you should set up a model that could be used like you have in this program, that some leader in those communities could have. I would not rely on people trying to develop that program, but I think like you have done here, there should be some type of a model to show people in senior communities what they can do, and then they can specialize it or set it up on their individual communities. That's my thoughts.
Thank you for that. We also have Teresa has her hand up.
I'm glad Mr. Otis brought up the subject about seniors because I volunteer with an organization called the Shepherd Center that takes seniors to their medical appointments, waits for them, and makes sure that they pick up their medication and are back home safely. And I was wondering too, would this be very good, what Mr. Otis was saying for the seniors? Because the seniors really, I didn't realize how much seniors need services in Fairfax County until I started volunteering. I mean, I worked in social services for over 45 years, but it was with families and children, homelessness, mental health, substance abuse, different avenues, but never with the seniors. There is a need here. And there's also volunteers that are willing to work with seniors. But like Mr. Otis said, it would need to be a program that's developed with knowledge, not just thrown together. You know, to say you have a senior program, but an actual senior program. And I would be more than happy to volunteer because I volunteer already, but I could extend myself. I'm retired. And there's plenty of retired people who are able, who might even be interested in volunteering for the program.
Thank you, Ms. Teresa. Appreciate the feedback. And Jim has put his contact information in the chat. So please, you can write that down as well. And for the
We
sake
do have
of,
one question, or do you want to move on, Katina, or do you want to have one question?
I did, but go ahead, read the question, Robert. I know you on it tonight. That's, as if you don't know, Robert is the chat person tonight, y'all. So he's doing good. So go ahead, and then we have to transition.
This is a quick question. Is your training program taught in various languages?
Not yet. We are working on a Spanish delivery. The materials are available. The federal program has translated the materials into Spanish, but you have to get the Spanish, the bilingual speakers in order to deliver it effectively. We are in the process of developing that now for the county.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a good ending. Thank you, Ms. Shirley, for mentioning that in the chat. All right, moving right along. All right, we have next Ms. Rachel Perrault with the Department of Code Compliance. Rachel, are you ready?
Yes.
All right, and Ram is going to put the slides up for you.
Thank you. I'm here from the Department of Code Compliance. Again, my name's Rachel Perrault. I am a supervisor in code compliance. I supervise the Mount Vernon District. I deal with code violations that happen all around the county, but that's specifically my area. Can you switch to the next slide, please? So a little bit about code compliance. This is actually one of the county's newer agencies. We were only created in 2010. We were created mostly because we were realizing that code enforcement was really difficult because it used to be a whole bunch of different agencies and somebody did a little bit with this and somebody did a little bit with that, a little bit with this, and it was kind of discombobulated. So we realized in working with overcrowding that there's a lot of code violations that overlap, but you need a bunch of different codes to address the problem. So we decided to make one umbrella organization in 2010, and we put a whole bunch of codes, which I'll get to in the next slide, together into one agency just to make it a little bit easier for everyone to handle these code violations that came up. So we have now about 38 investigators go around the county and supervisors addressing code problems. But we also have a huge call center. So we have 6 admin to answer the phones and have some borrowed staff from other county agencies. We have 2 county sheriffs and 1 county police officer that works in our office as well to help with delivering notices of violation and general things, safety for us as well. We're located on the 10th floor of the Harity Building, which is right across the street from the Government Center, if you know where that is. And just to let you know, in 2020, we did respond to over 7,500 different complaints about issues in the county. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, so this is what makes code compliance unique, is this is all the different codes that we handle. This is very different than how any other code enforcement group in the United States is run, because usually each one of these bullet points is a separate agency. So we've decided to lump it all together. So now code compliance deals with zoning, Virginia Maintenance Code, which is basically everything that's falling apart, broken on a house, the construction code, which is unpermitted buildings or structures that have happened without getting a building permit or the trade permits. We have a little bit of the fire code that we deal specifically just within residential homes. We deal with the blight program, which is houses that are in severe state of deterioration or basically collapsing. And we have some other little smaller programs like grass ordinance and signs and the right-of-way program, which I'll also get into in just a minute. Thank you. I think just go ahead and click until this stops. I'm sorry, I didn't keep these slides, so I think that's it. So this is just a little bit about our process. So we are complaint driven. So we don't drive around the county looking for violations, but we do take them from the community. So once we get a complaint and it's processed, it's assigned to one of our 38 investigators. And then we will go out to the property and try to determine if in fact there is a code violation for one of our codes or if there's not. Even if we get a smaller code violation, we will go out and look for every possible code violation so we can address everything all at one time and not have to make multiple trips back. So if we find no violation, we will close the case, but call the complainant and have a conversation about that issue so that they understand why there's no code violation. But if we do find an actual violation present, then for each code that has an offense on it, we will send a notice of violation, which is basically a document that explains what we found, how it violated, and what they need to do to correct it, and it gives a time frame to come into compliance. We will follow up then and make it into compliance before we close our case, but sometimes that does involve litigation. Let's change to the next slide. Thank you. So there's a bunch of different kinds of complaints that we run. Some of them are life safety issues and do have safety involved, and others are not. But we have a very vast display of different kinds of code violations. So I'm going to talk about some, but again, I think our zoning ordinance is about 4 inches thick. So there's no way I can explain every last possible thing we handle in my office, but some common complaints. We have smoke alarms. We do worry about life safety within a home. So if we're going into a house, we're going to make sure that egress is there, that they can get out in case of a fire, and that they do have working smoke detectors in the home. We look at maintenance issues. So anything falling apart or broken on a house, we want to make sure that we are addressing concerns that could bring down the quality of life in neighborhoods, and definitely things that could bother neighbors living right next door. So we also deal with things like outdoor storage or inoperable vehicles, things that can be a little bit unsightly on homes, especially things like grass height. We do address that. Now that is a seasonal issue, so we don't do that all year round, but as the spring, summer, and a little bit into the fall months happen, we will address the grass height. So some other things that we do deal with are unpermitted construction, like it's mentioned here, and some signage, but I am going to get into these a little bit in the next couple of slides. Thank you. So these particular slides coming up are going to be just a few of the zoning violations, but as I mentioned, our whole ordinance is about 4 inches thick, so there's hundreds and hundreds of different kinds of zoning violations. Zoning is the land use, so how you can use your land. So we're making sure that the land usage is zoned appropriately for whatever zoning district that particular property falls into. So for example, we would regulate the amount of storage that's found on a property. So you can have storage on a residential or a commercial or industrial lot, but we don't want it to turn into a junkyard situation in a residential lot, for example. So we do have some regulations, for example, like the storage cannot be located in the front yard and it has to be limited to 100 square feet. There are some other bigger requirements for commercial and industrial lots because we do need to allow for more storage, as that is part of businesses usually. But we will go out and look at these types of things, do a full inspection on the property, and then check which yard that is in to determine if there's a violation. Next slide, please. There are some sort of zoning violations that are a little bit more difficult, like multiple occupancy. This means how many people are living in a home. So we don't want to have an overoccupied house. So we do have a lot of regulations on how many people are allowed to live under one structure. In the little greenhouse there, we had, those are the different regulations. So you can have a family living there, and a family is defined by as many people are related by blood or marriage. Plus you can have 2 unrelated people. Or if you have unrelated people living in a home, then you can have 4 unrelated people, but no more than that. You can have 1 to 2 persons with children functioning as a household, and there's some things like group residential facilities or group households. But generally speaking, we're going to try to limit the total number of people so that we don't end up with hotels living next door. Next slide, please. Right along the same lines, we will look at dwelling units. So a house is a dwelling unit. A dwelling unit has 4 components. There's got to be somewhere that you can eat and prepare and store food, somewhere for you to sleep. There has to be some living space where you can enjoy time together. And then there has to be a way to provide hygiene. So all of these components make up a dwelling unit. In Fairfax County, we only allow 1 dwelling unit per structure. So we don't want to have places where renters are living separately than the rest of the house. There is a few exemptions and permit processes you can go through to make sure that to allow for a space to have some tenants. But generally speaking, there's a lot of rules and regulations, and it is very closely monitored by the county. So that's why we go through this special process. But generally speaking, a house is supposed to be unfettered access, so everybody can go all over the house and be everywhere and living all as 1 unit. Next slide, please. Okay, so looking at multiple dwelling unit issues, when we go out and investigate this, we're trying to see how many people are living independently, what their relationship is to each other, whether or not they have key locks separating themselves from each other, whether or not they're utilizing separate entrances to come to and from the house. A lot of times there's an upstairs and a basement. So trying to see if maybe the upstairs and the basements are living independently with a locked door in between floors. And then sometimes there's a lot of extra things that go into making these extra dwelling units that can make it unsafe as well. So we're trying to look at all of that to make sure the house is living as 1 unit and living safely. Some of the things that we deal with are the sign ordinance. So we do deal with signs on residential and commercial or industrial properties as well. What makes it a little challenging is that the First Amendment does give the freedom of speech. So sometimes we are very limited by the words on the sign. And in fact, we aren't allowed to actually read what's on the sign. So instead, what we do is focus on the size of the sign, the number of signs that are found on a property. If it's a commercial or industrial, the number of square footage of window coverage, and then whether or not the sign would need a permit to be present on that property. So the purpose of all this, first of all, is in a residential area to keep the freedom of speech for the folks living in that structure, but also to keep the peace with the neighborhood and trying to find a nice balance there. But we also, in the commercial or industrial areas, we are also very focused on promoting traffic safety, meaning we don't want signs that are moving, flashing, or otherwise very distracting to drivers that could cause accidents. So we do have a lot of regulations, and we do have certain types of signs that are outright prohibited to be placed, such as the little movie guy, I don't know what you call them, one that flaps in the wings all the way down there on the right side. Next slide, please. Thank you. So some of the other violations that zoning deals with is short-term lodging. And as I say before, we don't want to have hotels popping up in residential communities. So we do try very hard not only to limit the number of people that live in a home, but the transient nature we want to have happen as well. So we are trying to figure out if this house is a rental property, how long are people staying there? We want to make sure that they are regulated. So we can have short-term lodging, but we do have a lot of restrictions on it so that it doesn't become very problematic for the neighborhood. So things like making sure that if they're doing short-term lodging, this is a period of less than 30 days. Things like it can only be $200. Oh, sorry, that's not what I meant to say. It's $200 for a permit. So in order to do short-term lodging, you have to get a permit and have county inspections and be regulated, such as you can only have short-term lodging for 60 nights per calendar year. You can only have 6 adults staying in your structure at one time. There can only be one rental contract at a time, so you can't have the upstairs and the downstairs rented out at the same time, and definitely no banquet facilities need to pop up. So we don't allow for events and activities to be happening along with the short-term lodging. So we do have resources. We can look at the ways these are advertised, such as Airbnb or VRBO, and find out how long they've been occupied and how many times there's been a renter in these, and we do severely limit this from happening. Still talking about some different types of zoning violations, we look at things that are making the property value come down. So we don't want to have houses that have large numbers of inoperable vehicles on a property. So an inoperable vehicle is defined as things that won't move on its own, don't have valid tags, don't have valid registrations, or have otherwise basically can't turn on by themselves and be moved. So we will make sure that these are located out of sight. They either need to be in a fully enclosed building or structure, or they can have a car cover, not a tarp, but a car cover on top of them. But we do regulate that there's only 2 car covers allowed per property. Next slide, please. Noise is another thing we deal with. This is very difficult because it happens a lot of times overnight. So we do pair up with the police department on this. We unfortunately are not on call, so we can only handle things during the daylight hours. But we do try to work with the police and come up with a good effort together where we're trying to limit prohibited noises by whether that's animals, loudspeakers, construction noise, trash collection, or some other type of nuisance noise. And there are timeframes that can and can't happen. During the day, we are a little bit more lenient on this, but as overnight in the silent hours, we're definitely going to make sure that this isn't happening. Next slide, please. Unpermitted construction. So this is for new construction. This is renovations. This is adding additions or other structures to the property. We're going to check for permits and see whether or not they have a building permit to make the renovation or add the new structure or do the addition. And then we're going to make sure that they have their final inspections and do have a final inspection of a pass score. So this does include trade permits like mechanical, electrical, and plumbing as well. So sometimes renovations do require more than one type of permit, but this is all life safety issues. So we need to make sure that whatever's being built is done in a safe way and isn't going to cause harm to other people. There's more on that slide, but I think for purposes of time, we're going to just keep on going. Thank you. Just so you know, a permit is required for all gas appliances. So you can switch out a toilet for a toilet or a light for a light, but gas appliances are a little different because if you connect them wrong, it can leak carbon monoxide and can cause a severe life safety issue. So anytime, even if you're switching out a gas stove for another gas stove, a permit is required in order to make sure the connection is tight and isn't leaking. Thank you. Virginia Maintenance Code. This is very broad. There's many different things that can fall under this, but we are looking at houses to make sure that there are, first of all, nothing broken or falling apart on the house. This could be decks that haven't weathered well over time, porches, balconies, roofs that are caving in. This does get into a lot of life safety issues. We do come to houses expecting something and find people in very dire circumstances with water leaks that have gone unnoticed or floods that have never been cleaned up that have caused severe decay and deterioration inside homes. We can find roofs that are caving in and people are unknowingly living underneath it and don't even realize what's happening above their heads. But it can be for more minor things too that are causing neighborhood satisfaction problems like peeling paint or chimneys that are half falling apart and half standing up, or infestations. Next slide, please. Hoarding is definitely something that's very near and dear to my heart. I'm actually the co-chair of the Hoarding Committee for Fairfax County. So our office is one of the main places for intake for these types of complaints. I'm sure you've all seen them on the TV, and what you see is pretty much what's going on inside houses. So we deal with these complaints. We do partner with at least 20 different agencies around the county to try to collaborate and make sure that these cases are handled, as this is a very multifaceted code violation problem that does extend outside of our realm as well. But in these cases, a lot of times we are placarding houses and moving people out of houses, and we need a lot of assistance and support. There can be animals and children involved. And a lot of times these are our most extreme life safety issues that we do encounter. Next slide, please. The next couple of slides are just a few pictures of some of our cases. We want to make sure that people definitely have a place to live and sleep and eat, but we want to restore the functionality back to the home, which in many places and cases, this is severely limited. Yes, thank you. I'm just rolling through these, and I'm sorry, but we have so many different things my office does. Flight is another whole program that's run by one person in my office. So these are structures, whether that's industrial and commercial or residential, that somehow endanger the public health or safety or welfare. And they can be at some point of deterioration where there's imminent collapse. It could just be that they all are vacant structures, but most of the time they've just gone to such a state of deterioration that the house is going to have to be taken down, and the homeowner is not safely doing anything, or maybe is doing nothing. So it enters our blight program, and we sort of follow the process to make sure that this extreme life safety issue is resolved. Most of the time it's because these types of houses are very attractive, and we don't want the wrong type of people getting in here, meaning kids or even firefighters responding to a fire that was set somehow. We don't want people getting injured in these types of houses because there is no maintenance happening on them. And usually, as I said, they're in a severe state of deterioration. Next slide, please. Grass height is another thing that we deal with. We don't want to have properties where grass may exceed 12 inches in height. So we do have a team that is seasonal that we hire from April until October to go out and handle grass complaints. So we are only looking at properties with a half of an acre or less. So if it's more than that, unfortunately, we don't regulate the grass height. But if it's less than that on residential or commercial, then we are going to go out there and require them to cut the grass. If it is not cut, then the county will send this to mowing contractor, and the county will cut the grass. So this has been a very, very popular program that we have, and it still is, it's in full force right now, actually. Next slide. This is different type of violation that we deal with. This is a whole separate program. We deal with signage, as I was mentioning before, on residential properties and commercial properties, but we have a whole program for signage removal in the VDOT right-of-ways. So we have 99 roads. They're major roads. They're not located in neighborhoods, but some of our staff will go around these 99 roads every single week and write down what types of signs they're seeing in the VDOT right-of-ways. And then we pair up with the sheriff community labor force who will go around and remove all of these signs. But our staff is mostly there to document and then catch continued violators that are repeatedly doing this and trying to stop them with fines and litigation. So we are trying to reduce the number of signage that is populating that VDOT right away. Thank you. Next slide. Okay, so this is how you can make a complaint. As I said, you can oops, sorry, go back one slide. fairfaxcounty.gov/code is our website. There's a lot of different information on there, but there is a click part where you can make a complaint, or you're welcome to call our call center at 324-1300, and you will get a live person and you can discuss any type of questions or issues you have. But I think the next slide, we go into a little bit more detail. So this is our community complaint form where you can make different types of complaints. It just separates it. It's all kind of one main complaint form, but this sort of helps guide you to give you specific information that we would need to know more about the complaint. So that's why it separated it out a little bit. Next slide, please. This is just showing a little bit more of the form. So it's asking for a lot of specifics on here. We do take anonymous complaints, but why we don't like that is if we can't find the violation or we need to ask additional questions, we have nobody to get in touch with. So we ask that if you don't mind, please leave your information, but if you're that uncomfortable, you are welcome to leave an anonymous complaint as well. Next slide, please. Okay, this is just more of the same, just explaining that, but you also can go back to our website and type in the address and push search by address, and it will populate kind of an overall status of where we are with our case. So you can check on it there as well. Okay, so there are a lot of topics on our webpage as well that you can sort of get a rundown on a lot of the things I just mentioned and much more. On the next slide, it also shows you some flyers we have. I helped create these, but our office has, I think, at least 30 different flyers, which is just one page quick information, but it kind of summarizes all the code violation in there, and you can pass them out and print them and keep them for yourselves, whatever you need, but they are also available in multiple languages. Next slide, please. This is our last slide, but it just shows you there's a lot of different things we do around the community as well. Besides meeting people and trying to resolve code violations, we are also very into educating and trying to explain how to avoid life safety issues. So we do a lot of different presentations around the community with the Board of Supervisors offices. We try to continually maintain and update our website. If you go to the hoarding section of the website that we have, it's only a year old. Now have it's almost a whole entity in itself. There's resources and information and lots of things. We've just finished enhancing that. And we're always adding different flyers and things to our website to try to help pass around information as best we can. So that's, I believe, all I have. There might be a couple more. No, that's the last slide. So I know I talked really fast, but I was trying not to keep you all very late. So I would be more than happy to take questions now if anybody has any.
A couple of questions in the chat, Rachel, if we have time. Let's see. Another one just popped up. Suzanne thought that short-term rentals were only allowed in homes that were owner occupied. Can someone have a whole house rented as a short-term rental?
She is correct. So I'm sorry I didn't have time to go into each detail, but yes, it does need to be owner occupied. So a whole house can be rented, but somebody has to be there as well. The owner has to be living somewhere in the house. Or there could be a house manager, but there needs to be a permanent occupant there to manage the house.
Thank you. Brian would like to know, as vehicle noise is a serious issue in their community at all hours of the day and night, the following is taken from your website. Can you explain the difference as it pertains to noise ordinance applicability? The number 10 and 16. Number 10, noise from vehicles not on road right of way. And number 16, motor vehicles on the road.
I think, I'm not sure what part of our website that is taken off of. I think a lot of the noise stuff we try to explain generally, and we have included things that are beyond just DCC. As I said, this is a shared issue with the police. So vehicle noise is really not something the Department of Code Compliance handles, unless it's like, we have a couple of complaints where we're trying to deal with idling that's happening regularly. For example, we do deal with idling in shopping centers where there's deliveries coming to, and they're idling for hours and hours waiting for the store to wake up, to open up. But as far as noise on a roadway, that is not something that Department of Code Compliance handles. I'm not sure if that answered your question. So if not, please add more and I'll be glad to answer anything further on that.
From Shirley Ann, do you verify that the complainer actually lives in the community, or can residents from other communities call and report anyone anywhere?
We don't even take complaints from just the community. Somebody in California could call and make a complaint and we'll take that. So it doesn't matter where the resident or person lives. We take all complaints and we investigate them equally. And no, we don't, that's not a requirement, so we don't investigate that.
Okay, I think we still have time for one more question in the chat. What is your turnaround time from when a complaint is submitted to when you are out reviewing the location in question?
That is a good question. We are required to get out there within 2 weeks. I know that seems really long, but it allows us to prioritize life safety issues that come in the meanwhile. And sometimes we have a plan for the day and that's not what ends up happening. But usually it does not take 2 weeks to get out there. Usually we have a very quick turnaround and our investigators are out there within a couple of days. Sometimes from you making a complaint to an investigator getting it in their hand could take about 2 days. So please give us at least that amount of time before you're calling and asking questions. And know that we do have up to 2 weeks, but usually it's very fast.
All right, I think I can sneak in one more. Who
Okay.
pays the bill when the cut team is sent? Taxpayers?
No, the homeowner does. It's places a lien on the house or we bill them. And if they don't pay, then we place it as a lien. So it is not the taxpayers that pay that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Robert, and thank you, Rachel. And Rachel, please
Sure.
forgive me, I've been saying Perrault, but it's Perrault. So I do apologize.
It's okay.
for mispronouncing your last name.
I go by anything. Don't worry.
Don't say that.
It's okay.
I get called Katrina a lot. Hint, hint, a couple people, but it's okay. I still will answer and respond back. So it's all out of love. So I know it's not intentional. So I appreciate, thank you very much for your presentation. Feel free to stay on if you like. And we can go a lot more further probably into the to the car noise ordinance. So I would suggest that if you want to have some more information about that, I know Marvin, Officer Goodley is still on, so please feel free to reach out to him in regards to the any noise ordinances or situations where we are seeing a lot of cars with the gathering together and making loud noise with either their muffler or exhaust pipe or whatever have you. So please feel free to reach out to Officer Goodley directly if you want to have a further conversation about that. All right, so Courtney, you are up next. I know we are running close to 8:30, so please give us grace tonight. We do appreciate it. Hopefully the information is very valuable in one way or another. And if you have to get off at 8:30, we understand, but just give us a few more minutes and I'm sure Courtney will be able to summarize and wrap us up before we give our final goodbyes for the evening. All right, Courtney, you're up.
Thank you. So my name is Courtney Arroyo. I am the Community Engagement Manager for the Department of Emergency Management and Security. I have been with the county just about 5 years, and I've been working in Department of Emergency Management the whole time. Next slide. So just to give you guys a little bit of a background and overview of what emergency management is. So our main mission is to protect the lives, environment, and property of people in Fairfax County. And we do that by coordinating the response or whatever's happening during an emergency. Before an emergency, we like to educate people on how to mitigate for future disasters, how to prepare, how to respond, how to recover. I will say Cert did such a great job earlier that a lot of what I was going to tell you, they already told you. So some of the stuff I won't repeat, but I'll just tell you a little bit of a higher level of kind of where we fit into that. You can go to the next slide. So our mission essential function in Fairfax County is to operate the Emergency Operations Center. This is a center you can see in this picture where all the different agencies in Fairfax County could and do come together during emergencies. So for example, during COVID, we were activated and sitting in the Emergency Operations Center for the good part of a year, just coordinating the response, doing personal protective equipment, PPE, managing all that. We went to, for the first time ever, we did a single point ordering system because there were so many supply and demand issues that each agency was trying to get stuff, but everyone was kind of competing with each other. So when we go to single point ordering, we have to prioritize who's going to get what. So we were there to kind of help figure that out. We brought some employees from other agencies in to help us do that. So we had some people from the libraries come in. We had some people from Department of Family Services and other logistics experts in the county that do it on a regular basis to kind of help us through that. We are a fairly small agency in Fairfax County compared to a lot of others. We are only 22 individuals that make up our agency. We previously had 18, but we've added one new position on the emergency management side of the house. And as of October of 2021, we did acquire the county security. So that means that we now work with the safety in all of the buildings in Fairfax County, which would include the AEDs, the bleeding control kits, and training to make sure that employees are safe during the day. So that also includes access control, so who can get in and out of the buildings. You can go to the next slide. So our bread and butter in emergency management, we like to talk about preparedness. When you're prepared, it gives you a better response and it makes sure that you can recover faster. So in 2016, 2017, Supervisor Cook from the Braddock District at the time had asked emergency management if we could write an emergency operations plan for residents. So after a lot of back and forth and gathering of all the ideas, the Community Emergency Response Guide was introduced in Fairfax County. In this plan, you're going to find a lot of different information. You will find, now everything I'm going to talk about, of course, today is in there. So you're going to find information on what to do before, during, and after an emergency. You're going to find information about the most prevalent hazards in Fairfax County, but also you're going to find templates. And we find that this is probably the most helpful part of it, because everything that we're talking about, you want to go back and do, but most people don't remember it just from the presentation or orientation. So we have a family emergency plan where you can download the template. You can do it online. It doesn't save any data once you exit out of it. It unfortunately doesn't save, which is good for us. But if you spent a lot of time putting stuff in, you definitely want to make sure you save it as a PDF. It has a business and organization emergency plan. So for anyone who might own a business in the county, we also did just release our business disaster resilience guide, which is just built upon the one that we put in the CERG. And then we also have a neighborhood preparedness plan. And I wanted to touch on this a little bit because I know a couple of people were asking about Cert and how to kind of include that in a senior community. And I wanted to bring this up because the neighborhood preparedness plan might be a better fit. It kind of takes all of the same elements without all of this, all of the hands-on work that Cert does. And we can come out and do a workshop to kind of bring the community together. You know, as long as, so you guys would kind of schedule a meeting and we could come out, talk about the neighborhood preparedness plan and how to use it, and then also go through kind of like workshop style in going through the different elements of that and how it would work in your community. So we've done it in a couple communities. I recently, right before the pandemic, I had done it. Our previous coordinator lives in a retirement community, and he had requested that we come out and do a presentation. And we actually decided that we were going to test the neighborhood plan in his community, since, you know, he was still supporting us from that aspect. So it did work, and they're continuing to use it. They have monthly meetings about it, just to make sure everything is still up to date. And they also do some different exercises each year to make sure that their plan actually works. You can go to the next slide. So preparedness. So a couple steps: make a plan, practice your plan. Plans are great, but you have to practice them to make sure that they work. Assemble your kits and stay informed. I know that I think Jim had a picture of the Centerville fire as well. So this just gives you a little bit of a different view. That top picture, that is the Forest Glen Apartments from 2018. And that fire started from improper disposal of a smoking material. So it started with a cigarette in a planter pot that had nice new soil in it that hadn't been watered. Obviously, that is not a good situation. And it was a very windy day, much like the conditions that we often see in May and June. Really nice, bright blue day. And the fire traveled really fast. You can go to the next slide. So response, we also do some trainings to let people know what different options they have when responding to an emergency. So sheltering in place, locking down, evacuation, what it means to go to a shelter, and how you can help your community. So making sure you're using that neighbor to neighbor model and checking on those around you, because that's definitely an important aspect of living in Fairfax County. You can go ahead to the next slide. So recovery, a lot of us love to prepare, but obviously, you know, preparedness is great, but recovery often is the cycle that we don't ever want to get to. So I just want to remind everyone, you know, if you are ever in a disaster situation and, you know, once you're safe and you're trying to figure everything out, it's really important that you take those preparedness materials that you did put together. For example, like your insurance information, we suggest that you put together an inventory of what's in your home. Make sure you do an insurance checkup every year to make sure you have enough coverage for what you have in your house. But your first set of things that you should do is contact your insurance company and take pictures. So you want to make sure that you report your damage. Make sure before you start any work or any cleanup, you do have pictures of everything. But you also want to make sure that there's a lot of scammers that come around after a disaster. You want to make sure that you're getting reputable contractors. So making sure you're checking that they have a license with Fairfax County and all that good stuff. You can go ahead to the next slide. So mitigation, these are things that we highly encourage people to do. So making sure your home is safe, obviously insurance, and making sure all those personal items that are of value to you are accounted for. Making sure that you test your smoke alarms. I cannot tell you, I have personally responded to 5 garden apartment fires since December, and they have all been from different, all different reasons of why they started. But the thing that we're really finding is that people really don't check their smoke detectors and make sure that they actually work. I know that mine work because I tend to set them off while cooking. So I like to count that as my little test, but a lot of people don't check them. They don't ever change the batteries. So you want to make sure that you are checking it. Also want to mention, if a fire alarm goes off, please leave your house. We're not gonna, it's not great to kind of sit there and double check and, see if it's a real fire, just get out. We don't want anyone to get hurt, but we are often coming into a situation where I hear people talking about how they're trying to see if it's actually a real fire before they get out. So just make sure you're kind of following those general directions. You can go ahead to the next one. So we have hazard annexes throughout the community emergency response guide. You'll see different hazards that affect our county. They're broken down into natural, human caused, and then everyday emergencies. Each hazard is structured the same. They have what it is, the key terms, and then what to do before, during, and after. You can go to the next slide. So where can you find the guide? You can find it online on the county's website under emergency management. You can also find it in the library in the reference section. And we've also provided copies in several different languages to the different senior centers and community centers for their local libraries. The different languages that are available in the community centers, those we worked with neighborhood and community services to identify what languages should go in which neighborhoods. So if at any time you're looking for a language that's not there, you can still find it online. You can go to the next one. So we have a couple other companion guides that we're talking about. So the business disaster resilience guide is obviously for businesses. We have the 5-step guide to neighborhood preparedness, and we just pulled that out and made it its own document so that we can print it out and go through it if we're doing a workshop. We also have a kids community emergency response guide. So it is really focused the same way, what to do before, during, and after, but everything is just more broken down into kid-friendly terms. Same thing for the teen community emergency response guide. It's tailored to about 6th grade to 12th grade, a little bit more in depth, but not as in depth as the big Cert. You can go ahead to the next one. So how can you help? Number one, if you're not signed up for Fairfax Alerts, which I know Jim from Cert talked about, it would be great if you took out your smartphone. I know everyone's like, oh, put the smartphones away. But it's a good time to take it out, scan the QR code, and sign up for Fairfax Alerts. Help us promote the guide. So I would challenge each one of you to take what you learned here today and talk to someone else about it. Just because you don't have the time to volunteer or sit on community meetings or boards and other stuff like that, it doesn't mean that you still can't be part of the community. Just talking to someone else, whether it's a family member or a friend, a neighbor, to make sure that they know about Fairfax Alerts and they know about the community emergency response guide, you're still, doing your part. We can also come out and do different presentations and workshops, so we can tailor it to whatever, community we're coming to. If you live in a senior community or even have, an HOA that you want us to come talk to, we can definitely talk and plan before we do that. We are on social media at Ready Fairfax on both Twitter and Facebook, and we do post every day. So you can get some preparedness messaging there as well. You can go to the next slide. Okay. So I tried to talk fast. I know that, you know, at the end of the night, everyone, you know, is kind of a little bit spent. But here's my contact information. If you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out. We do have our own volunteer corps as well. It's called the Emergency Management Volunteer Corps. We do go to different outreach events, and our volunteers are trained to go out and deliver presentations. I do like to say that I would so rather hear from a volunteer than from myself, because it's more of a peer talking to peer type of environment rather than our staff just coming out and talking. So we do often try to co-present or at least assist each other in those types of things. Okay, that's it.
Oh, there we go. We do have one question. I see Otis has his hand up.
Yes, Courtney, did I hear you say in your presentation that someone who retired from your group has started a senior program?
No, he lives in a retirement community, and he was our community test group that we did for the 5-step neighborhood guide. So we went in and we did the training and the workshop, and they developed their community plan. They held an exercise to make sure that it worked.
Can you give me his contact information? Can you put it in the chat?
You know what? I don't know that I actually have it off the top of my head. I might actually have to ask someone. So can you email me or?
Yes. Yeah, I can contact.
Yeah, because I don't know that I have it off the top of my head or even in my email.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, and Mr. Otis, I can send an email to as a backup to Courtney to making sure that you guys connect. And Courtney, just to let you know, all the participants in Neighborhood College are responsible for a practicum. So their presentations at the last class will be on various topics of areas that are new to them, or they want more information to be able to share with their community or their HOA or civic groups, or just engaging other residents. So some of them may be reaching out to others as well. So that's why we're asking certain questions.
No, you know what? That's actually really great, because I just went through. I don't know if Jacob is still on, but Jacob and I just went through the middle managers roundtable together. And we also did have to do something similar at the end to kind of highlight one of the, an aspect of the county. So kudos to you guys, because I know it can be a lot of fun and you're learning a lot of new things. So
absolutely. Okay, I don't think, Robert, I didn't see anything else in the chat. Did you?
I did not. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. So, and also Courtney, with those different guides that you have, if you can send them some to my office, that would be great, because I would like to, even though we send out the presentations to all the participants, at the last class, we're looking to have that in person so they can do their presentations. But I'm also gifting them with all of the a binder with all of the information, and then any other additives that could help them to keep their resources together. So any type of brochures, and that goes for all to the rest of our other presenters as well. So
how many participants do you have?
Right now I probably would need about 35.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I send you like some goodie bags?
You can send me whatever your heart's desire.
Oh yeah. Okay. No, I love it, because we haven't been able to give anything out, and I have these emergency preparedness starter kits that we put together that we'd love to bring out to the community to encourage people to actually take action, but there's really, because we're not like going out,
right,
it's really hard, but I would love to send them to you. So
send them whatever you have, you can send it to me. And Courtney and I go way back, you guys. We plan a lot of community events for not just NCS, but a lot of just in the community. And she's always been very responsive to supporting efforts of getting the word out about emergency preparedness, Fairfax alerts, and things are in different languages. And a lot of the agencies, like she said, they have these goodies. And since we've kind of been on a hiatus for about, a year and a half or 2 years, you guys get the benefits of coming out of this season to be able to share some great resources and also some goodies. So we appreciate it. So thank you.
And I will say, I do want to just throw a plug in. All of the items that you're going to be getting were actually donated to the county. So I had gone out and put a request out for a service project because corporations come to the county for different service projects every year. So I had put an opportunity out there and actually like 4 or 5 different corporations picked it up. And we got about 3,000 emergency preparedness starter kits that we put together at one of the county field days, the county wellness fair that they have, which is actually coming up. But we were able to put together so many. We handed them out to all the Meals on Wheels participants. So they went first to our homebound individuals. But obviously we want to get the rest of them out into the community. So it's really
awesome. And yes, Elizabeth, she's one of our neighborhood ambassadors with the Opportunity Neighborhoods United Community, and she says she can be at our Sequoia Community Day. So yes, there's a list. We actually have a list of all the events that are coming up that we share with our other agencies. So we let them know things that they could participate in. So like Courtney said, if you need her for your event or an opportunity where you want her to share the information, please reach out. And Elizabeth, I'll give Courtney the information too, so that way she'll know about the date and time and what's going on. So, all right. Thank you very much, Courtney, and everyone else. Letitia, you have any final words? Because it's 8:42 and we want to make sure we wrap up really quick.
I just wanted to say thank you to all the speakers tonight, and also that thank you for the participants that stuck with us for the for the couple of minutes past 8:30, and we look forward to seeing everyone on May 19th, session 5. Have a great evening, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.